Well, Razorback fans, we know that Razorback basketball is still a few months away, but the schedule is still taking shape. So, what type of excitement and what to look forward to under Cal's first year when it comes to scheduling? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We got a very special Pod at the Palace edition once again for you today. John Neighbors alongside Curtis Wilkerson. And Curtis, I know that last week we had a lot of fun talking basketball too, but one of the things that I know people are excited about is scheduling and these games and the Cal impact on that. And so we have an idea of a few games, some of them still up in the air, but certainly the non-conference schedule seems to be taking shape.
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, it's interesting. The full schedule usually comes out right after Labor Day. The reason that I know that is because my anniversary is September 4th. And so on my honeymoon and then on our 1-year anniversary trip, I was having to sneak off and write the schedule release story. So I know that that's coming. But yeah, the non-conference schedule has been a bit of a chore, I think, for John Calipari. And, you know, I think one thing about Eric Musselman that always used to drive me nuts was the way he didn't aggressively schedule in the non-conference. They had the Maui Invitational, they had to battle for Atlantis. That was awesome. Outside of that, though, unless it was one of those conference challenges, SEC, ACC, SEC, Big 12, he really was not playing the best teams out there, and it impacted their net ranking. It hurt them, especially if you lose some of those games. I think we get to see the exact opposite of that now with John Calipari. I think it's fair to say that he is a flash guy, John, a spotlight guy. He does schedule aggressively for those marquee games, those headliners. He talked about it when he's mentioned the schedule in the past. Oh, well, CBS contacted me about this. ESPN contacted me about this. It's because John Calipari is a brand, and he's always going to have a really talented team that people are going to watch. Whether they love him or hate him, that's just going to kind of be the case there. So for the most part, I think we're going to have really exciting schedules under John Calipari, but I do kind of want to caution everybody this season to be a little bit more patient because he got a late start, right? I mean, I don't think this year's schedule is going to be reflective of what we might see from years to come. When I was in charge of scheduling, when I was coaching at Lindenwood, the main thing is, like, with the exception of a couple games, your schedule for the following season is pretty much done by the time your current season ends. He wasn't able to do that. He asked for the schedule. He had no schedule when he came to Arkansas. A lot of teams were done scheduling by the time he even started. So it kind of limits what you're able to do in terms of the games you're going to play.
Well, when you brought up like ESPN contacting EMC, is like, that's only a Cal thing, right? Like, I feel like, you know, usually how people took schedules is, oh, the coach or the, you know, assistant coach, whoever is in charge of scheduling ends
Ruda.
up, Ruda. Yeah. The Rudas of the world go out there and just contact the schools and they try to make it work. But when you have the networks, like, is that a common thing or for just Cal, or is that common maybe in other places in college basketball?
Man, I would have to think that there's only a pretty select handful where that would be the case. You know, I'm sure it happens with the Blue Bloods, right? Probably still happens with Kentucky. Duke and North Carolina, they know it's going to draw a lot of eyes onto the network. But in terms of coaches and their personal brand and how that impacts things, Cal is definitely on a very, very short list. So that's pretty cool. And it's a little bit different. It's kind of crazy if you look around and see how people schedule nowadays, especially when these conferences are growing. I think the SEC is going to go from 18 league games to 20 league games next year or the year after. So you wonder, is it worth it to be more aggressive with these non-conference games? How do you balance that? A guy like Nate Oates, he'll go out and play anybody, anywhere, at any time. And that's risky, but it puts them in a situation where they can lose 12 games in the regular season and get a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Muss, on the other hand, he might play 3-4 pretty solid games and then a bunch of hot dogs for the rest of the non-conference. You can't then afford to lose a bunch of games. You got to really do those 12-1s or 11-2s in non-conference, or your backs are against the wall once you get into league play.
Yeah, because when Muss was here too, at least not to my knowledge, there was never a big non-conference game that was scheduled whether it was a home and home or whatever that was not done by a challenge or not done. Like, I guess the Oklahoma game kind of what maybe is close to that, but
Yeah.
that was a frustrating thing where I understand scheduling is tough in college basketball. Don't get me wrong, but like there was just never those marquee non-con games that were either on the road or even at home that you feel like a program under Muss that had made it to 2 Elite Eights and 3 Sweet 16s would be able to schedule.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's, I think, what's going to be a little bit different with Cal, whereas Muss was big on, hey, if we can go to the Bahamas or Hawaii or whatever, let's do that and go play 2 or 3 games. Cal does not do that. He is not a fan of those tournament style things. For whatever reason, he's just not about that life. But what he is those spotlight showcase games. So if he can go play a one-off somewhere that's going to be on ESPN at a neutral site, he'll do that. If it's a potential for a home and home, he did it with Gonzaga the last couple years. He'll do something like that. And so we might be a little bit better set up to get those big time games in Bud Walton Arena. But not so much if we want to take those Thanksgiving weekend trips to Hawaii or the Bahamas or wherever. It's not really his thing.
Yeah, I have a feeling when Cal walked in and wanted to know what the schedule is, what's like, well, coach, you're going to San Diego to play these games. I feel like he was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no, we're not.
we're not going to San Diego. We're going to do things differently. But yes, the big games and also some possible cool exhibitions are going to be scheduled. We'll talk about that here in a second here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Because with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back. So because of eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at all the prices you want, it makes very easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so continuing on with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pod at the Palace edition. We've been talking a little bit about the excitement for Cal's schedule, but we're starting to know now of what the schedule is coming through, some of the big games and even some exhibition games. And Curtis, I know we got to figure out dates on a lot of them. Some of them have already been set and everything, but so far, I would say that this is probably going to be one of, if not the best and most intriguing non-conference schedule Arkansas's had in a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're kind of all over the place, and it starts with the exhibitions that Cal said they're working on, trying to get finalized with a date for TCU in Dallas. That would be pretty cool. They did the exhibition in Austin to open up the Moody Center against Texas a couple years ago. That was a lot of fun outside of them getting blasted by 30. But yeah, I mean, getting down there in that market, I think is a good idea. He mentioned the potential for Kansas coming to Bud Walton Arena for an exhibition. That would be Purdue 2.0 levels of crazy. That's as good as an exhibition gets, right? So an opportunity to test your team early. I think that's really cool, man. A few bye games that aren't that exciting, but you got to have them right on your schedule. You're not going to play 13 of the top 25 teams in the country, but Maryland Eastern Shore, have you ever heard of them?
No, I know that they're on Maryland is on the east, and there's maybe a shore around it, but no, that's about it.
Yeah, there you go. I don't either, outside of when they used to do the Mountain Dew challenge, where if you get the name of the national champion underneath the bottle cap, you get a free Mountain Dew. I would get Maryland Eastern Shore like all the time. November 13th, looks like that date is locked in now against Troy. That's kind of an interesting game. It's a team that's going to zone Arkansas a lot, so test them there. They were the post Maui game a couple years ago when Devo had kind of quit the team. Nick Smith made his return. They almost lost to Troy at home, so that was kind of weird. November 22nd, home game against Little Rock, so the return of KK Robinson, that should be fun. Let's see, UCA at Simmons Bank Arena. I like that. If you're not going to play a high major team for that neutral site game at Simmons Bank, do an in-state thing. I think that's pretty cool. And then you got your typical pre and post Christmas games with North Carolina A&T on December 21st. And then Oakland, which is interesting. That's the team that put Cal out of the tournament in the first round last year. coming on the 30th there. But it's really all about those 3 big time games right now. Illinois, Thanksgiving Day, Kansas City. Let's go, man. I'm pumped about that. That game should have happened at the Hall of Fame Classic a couple years ago, but Illinois choked. They lost to Cincinnati. The rematch of the NCAA tournament game in Des Moines that we were both at. Mm-hmm. It's Cal versus Orlando Antigua. It's Big Z versus Little Z. All right. Big bro versus little bro. That's really cool, man. The SEC ACC Challenge at Miami. It's a good game. It's going to be a quad 1 game against a projected tournament team. They're 2 years removed from a Final Four. We watched them get there at a sports book in Vegas. That was fun. It's a little bit weird. I understand not running it back with Duke for the SEC ACC Challenge. I think the North Carolina-Bama rematch makes a lot of sense, but why didn't Arkansas get Louisville or Virginia or something? I don't know, but at least Miami's a cool place. And obviously Madison Square Garden against Michigan, Nelly Davis versus his former coach and a couple of his teammates. That's going to be really, really cool. So still a few games left to add there, 3 or 4 that we don't know about yet. It's getting a little bit late for Arkansas to add another banger there, but hey, Cal said he wants to maybe get another home game, a home and home set up. Looking at you, Memphis. He's mentioned Gonzaga maybe in the future, or still getting a neutral site in Dallas this year. So pretty solid schedule overall right now, but definitely room for it to improve.
So as far as the actual, not the discounting the exhibition games, but the actual non-conference games, like if you're doing the power rankings of the most like interesting or best ones, I guess Michigan and Madison Square Garden has to be number 1, I would think. Yeah. And then would number 2 be Illinois and Kansas City? Would that be there, or would it be the Miami game in Miami?
I would probably go Illinois and Kansas City. That's really cool, man. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I would too. And then Miami after that, I guess. And
yeah, definitely that.
Okay.
And then maybe, Oakland. Just because of the story right now after that. Yeah. That does more for me, honestly, than the Little Rock game or the UCA game. I get it. In-state stuff is cool, but you know.
It's like if I could probably put a guarantee on a game that Arkansas is going to win in basketball this year, I think it's going to be Oakland. I have a feeling that's probably going to be a game that Arkansas ends up winning at home. But yeah, that's the intriguing thing where in previous years, just make it like the Illinois game. Like that would have been like oh man, like huge, big deal, like all this stuff. And now it feels like you have like 3 of those games. And as you mentioned, Cal was late to getting the schedule going. Imagine if he actually was able to have a full, like what next year's schedule will even look like. Because I know you mentioned some teams. I mean, we could be sitting there looking like, okay, this. It's almost like Arkansas's non-conference slate is a Maui Invitational, considering some of the teams that they'll be playing. And it won't be in Maui. It'll be in either Bud Walton or Dallas or Madison Square Garden. Who knows? Maybe they'll go out to, it's not Staples anymore, but with the Crypto Arena or something like that, where LeBron's out. Like, I don't know. Like that's the thing is with Cal, there's no, not only is there no team that's off limits to play, but there's no venue that seems to be off limits either. You could play anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, man. If there's an NBA arena that he can play in, or a football stadium he can play in, or an aircraft carrier he can play on, he's going to do that. And if you get him a year removed from Kentucky, but if this Arkansas team, plays as well as people think they're going to play and kind of reaches the heights people expect him to, and then knowing how he's going to recruit, like the possibilities really are endless moving forward. It's going to be pretty awesome to watch.
So before we move on, just play a little fantasy here. We just assuming Cal is going to be at Arkansas for 5 years and have great success and everything. I feel like it's almost like an ad lib you have to play, Curtis. If there was one team, school, squad, whatever, to play at one place, one arena, one tanker, like whatever, like in the next 5 years, what would you love to see, or who would you love to see Arkansas play and where? Like, is there one team that you'd like to place at this place and play them in some time here in the near future?
I mean, it probably wouldn't be at the top of everyone's list, but given, my history on the beat, I would love to see them play USC in Vegas or something, I mean, come on.
Oh, dude, the press conference, just if they had like press conference leading up to it or something like that, man, that would be like Bob Holt talking to Muss and to Cal. Like, yeah, that would be ideal. So who knows? Maybe it happens. You can't ever rule anything out when it comes to Cal and it comes to his scheduling. And we'll also talk about some of the things that have been going on with the actual basketball team. Like, hey, we have numbers. They actually have numbers. So we'll talk about it here in just a second on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, everybody. I want to remind you that, of course, we are brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We love them so much that we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs continue to wind down, we get fewer and fewer games. And as sports aren't sportsing like we always want them to, FanDuel keeps it all going whenever we want, because all we have to do is open up their app and dream up any bets anytime that we're in the mood. And so this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pot at the Palace edition. We got jersey numbers, Curtis. We have identification now officially for the players, and there were some surprises, but overall, guys that have played before, played at other schools and everything. That was kind of the unique thing of seeing, hey, are they going to keep the same numbers or are they going to change it up a little bit?
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I really nerd out on. It was weird all summer with having the roster on the website and no numbers beside them. So you're trying to match up practice jerseys and stuff. But in a lot of ways, it's different. Some of these guys are kind of boring, like Nelly Davis, DJ Wagner, Adu Thiero, Big Z. They're all keeping their same numbers from where they were in the past. So whatever. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's cool. I do have a question for you, though. Where do you stand on the change that allows them, to wear those jersey numbers above, fives?
I love it. I've been wanting that for a long time, because I remember as a kid, it always confused me where, like watching, I was, of course, like just like everybody our age, like huge Chicago Bulls fan. I remember seeing Dennis Rodman have 91. I was like, why doesn't anybody on Arkansas have 91? Like it was always so I'd never understood it. And it's just weird that it took this long to finally prove it. So I'm all for it. I love high numbers.
Okay. I'm a big fan of 6 through 9. I like that. There's just something that feels weird to me still. Like if a Razorback is wearing 78 or something, if you got a cool reason and a story behind it that I can write about, okay, fine. But otherwise, I don't know, man, just it's a little strange.
It is.
Arkansas does have a couple guys who are doing that this year. Last year they had Layden Blocker wore 6, Chandler Lawson wore 8. I kind of like that. Melo Sanchez this year is going to wear number 8. That's kind of cool. At Hawaii Pacific, he wore number 1. The one that surprised me the most, though, was Jonas Adu. He was a 0 guy at Tennessee, and then he was wearing number 10 in practice all summer. Jonas Adu is going to be number 9. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, with him, because we'll be honest, we'll talk about who number 0 is, but I know that if it became between Jonas Adu and Jaden, however you pronounce his name, it would be, I think they were like, hey, I want want number 0. I think Cal and everybody would be like, yeah, Jonas, you're going to get whatever number, you're going to get 0. But yeah. So he didn't, apparently, so that tells me he's like, he didn't, I guess, want 0, and he was wearing 10. So I just makes me wonder, like, what went to that? I want to know what went into that decision of, like, did he not want 10? Because nobody has 10. It's available. Right. So I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah, that's a question I kind of wouldn't mind asking. It is weird. There's no 10, no 5, and no 23 on this roster unless Cash Chavis takes one when he gets on campus. Those are like the 3 most popular numbers, I feel like, for a basketball player. But number 9 for Adu. Jaden Carletwa, as you mentioned, is going to rock the 0. I might be more of a 00 guy than 0. Do you have a stance on that?
I mean, I like the look of 0 because I think it was in junior high school. I kind of like Gilbert Arenas, the Agent 0 thing or whatever. And so he was really the first one I remember having like number 0. And so that kind of stuck with me, because when I think of 00, think of either Kai Madden or Michael Washington. I think they're the only 00s at Arkansas. So I'm more of a single 0 guy personally.
For sure. Yeah. A couple other interesting things here real quick on that. Boogie Flan, incoming freshman, is going to wear number 2. That means Trevin Brazil's number is going to change. So he's going to go to number 4. And that's interesting. Obviously, number 4 was Devo's number for all those years. I wonder if TB like secretly wanted that and it became available and he took it, or if Boogie was on campus with number 2 and then TB was late getting back, out of the portal, and maybe he just had to make a change there. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, like when I saw that, and you'll get used to it and everything, but when you have a player that like Devo was like 4 years at Arkansas wearing 4, it's going to take a little bit to kind of be like, I guess you got to get somebody different. But yeah, that's going to take some getting used to. But who knows? Maybe number 2 hasn't exactly been kind to Trevin Brazil since being in Arkansas. So maybe he's like, I just need to switch it up to get some different vibes in here.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. We'll see how that goes for him. He's going to have to change that TB2 handle of his.
Yeah.
The other two freshmen there, Carter Knox, number 11, Wharton High School. Shout out to Jalen Graham, who's playing pro ball in Kosovo now. So that number became available. And Billy Richmond, number 24, shaking that jersey off of Jeremiah Davenport there. So pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. What's sad is that 11 at Arkansas, I'll always think of BJ Young.
Yes. St.
And
Louis boy.
24 is Michael Qualls was probably the most notable recent one, but also Joe Johnson. People forget Joe Johnson wore number 24 when he was at Arkansas. So
Big shoes to fill there, Billy Richmond.
Yeah. Just two of the more exciting and explosive players at Arkansas scene, especially Joe Johnson, who maybe at this point might be the greatest pro player. Like, before we get out of here real quick, do you think Joe Johnson's the greatest NBA player from Arkansas that went to Arkansas? You think?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
Yep.
So just want to make sure we're on the same page there. But still a lot of basketball, still plenty of things to discuss, and we'll keep it moving on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pod at the Palace edition throughout the week. So for Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.